Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to be looking at statements within the language. And the first one that we're going to look at is looping of code. Think of having to write something 1,000 times. That's a lot of work. Well, it turns out that the language has constructs within it, statements, that can automate this for you. So let's go ahead and start by writing the page that will hold our code. We will start with the doc type definition. That's HTML. Then we will do our HTML syntax tags. We will follow it by the body. And this particular editor can match my tags. And finally, we get to our script section. I'm just going to copy this over and put the finishing tag as so. Okay, now we're ready to write. We're going to go ahead and write a small loop. The syntax is as follows. You can see here the shortcuts or the instructions that the editor is giving for me, but I'm going to go ahead and write it from scratch. It has 3 items that you need to pay attention to. The first one is the way you initialize typically the counter that you're going to use, but this is the first part that executes for this loop of code. So let's go ahead and start with something typical such as a counter, and we're going to initialize that counter at 0. We're then going to set, and this is the second item, remember I mentioned 3, the second item is the condition upon which this loop will stop. Otherwise it would just execute forever. So let's go ahead and say as long as the counter is less than 10, and the third item is the condition that's going to repeat every single time. Typically this is set to your counter increment. So in this case we will write the counter to increase by 2. We would look at the operators in a subsequent lesson, but for now just believe me when I tell you that plus plus increments the counter by 1 in every single loop. After that we need curly braces to specify the block of code that is going to return, that is going to compute every single time. So at this point we probably want to see what it's doing, so let's go ahead and write to the console. This is the way that you write to the developer console that we have shown you in the past. So the way you do it is you write console.log, and within those parentheses is what you want to write. We're going to go ahead and write out the counter. Simple. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save the changes that we made, and we're going to load this page into the browser. Initially we will not see anything because we're not really doing anything when it comes to the display of this HTML page. All of this is running in the background on a script, but we should be able to see all of these outputs from the console.log. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. Go ahead and load the browser. You can see there that I have the page, and as I told you, there is nothing to look at. Now if we look behind the scenes at the developer tools and we expand the console section, we can see that there was a number of statements written to the console: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All those correspond to each of those loop iterations. This is very useful, and many times for many different types of computation you will want to loop through a particular number of items that you have built. You will want to loop through a particular number of computations that you need to perform. At times when you do simulation you will need to walk through a number of tasks that need to be performed on every single time step. So looping is an important element of the language. There are some variants of this looping structure, and you can read more about those. For now I'll go ahead and stop, and I will thank you for paying attention. Goodbye.